this email, as in counter these viral emails. Nobody knows where they're coming from, but they're going from your uncle to your cousin behind the scenes. And the only way that you can counter those, because you obviously can't stop them, is just to get a message out there. But this is one of those sort of quiet things where citizens are, taking action on their own, but in ways that, we wouldn't necessarily find terribly helpful. So, again, I would say that looking at Ron Paul, looking at Obama, Paul shows the power of a distributed group of people taking action on their own. Obama shows the power of marrying the kind of intensity of support with central guidance, and also a very well integrated set of features. If you sign up for an Obama list, they will send you the kind of message you want. If you want to get text messages, you get text messages. If you want email, you get email. If you want Facebook messages, you get Facebook messages. That they have broken down a lot of the silos that divided different ways of communicating with people within the campaign. And the other thing that's the thing that on my resource page here that I spent a lot of time on is the citizen-generated videos. From the very beginning, Obama has sparked people into great flights of creativity. Everything from Bollywood mashups to the lovely and legendary Obama girl, who's of course I'm a huge fan. And then you'll see things with where you end up with action and then counteraction. There was a very popular video put together by one of the guys from the Black Eyed Peas in favor of Obama's flight movement. And then within 2 or 3 days, somebody comes out with a parody of that about John McCain. So it's the sort of cycle of creativity is very short now. And it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see what comes out over the next 8 or 9 months.
Okay, so my notes from your talk, Colin, are it's all about the money.
Yes.
Some campaigns just allow their supporters to spontaneously join in communities and networks. Others like to be more involved, and there's this new form of political activism called creating content online on behalf of your candidates. Now, we know that not all of the presidential candidates seem to be as savvy as Obama and Ron Paul. They're all doing very interesting things in their own ways. One of the things that Colin mentioned is this internal social network. We have a lot of candidates with these internal social networks. Clinton has one. McCain has one. Edwards has one. But what makes these campaigns different is that they have been accused of running too much of a top-down campaign. And too much of a top-down campaign seems to be a little less tech-savvy. Patrick, what do you see going on with this top-down campaign style?
Well, I think you would have to look at Hillary Clinton, right, as the epitome of a top-down campaign. I think, they started this campaign very much looking to the Bush Cheney campaign as an example of, what they were going to do and the kind of campaign they were going to run. And I think it's had mixed results, but I think it's had some good results and certainly run into some limitations. We don't think of Hillary Clinton as somebody who directly engages social media. She has a Twitter account, but she's following 0 people. So if I follow her, she doesn't follow me back. Barack Obama follows me back. It's those small things that they don't do. But one thing that they do well is the email list. Building up the email list as big and as large and as influential as it can possibly be. Probably, I think they announced 1 million supporters back in September. I'm sure that's probably doubled by now. Now, what does this mean? Because the vast majority of action on the internet is not social media. It's not Facebook. It's not Twitter. It's, a single supporter going to Googling somebody, going to their website, seeing the nice join the team, or seeing the splash page, which asks them to sign up for email and say, yeah, sure, I'm a supporter. I'm going to enter my email address and my zip code. I'm probably never going to go back to the website. On most of these sites, especially if they're more top-down, especially if they're more focused on presenting content as opposed to building community, they're probably going to check it out once. But that doesn't matter so much as long as you can get their email address and be able to mail them on a regular and consistent basis. You know pretty much how much you're going to fundraise off of that list. And that's been the crux of their strategy. And it's been certainly a top-down approach, but if you had to say that if there's a good top-down, it's probably been them. I mean, in terms of creating, you see these cheesy videos, with Bill scarfing down a cheeseburger, or the Sopranos video. All of the entire intention of that being that we're going to drive more traffic to our site. Half the time we're not going to post these things on YouTube because that's just driving traffic to YouTube, but not to us. And get people to sign up for the emails. And then once we get people to sign up for the emails, we're going to fundraise like crazy off of that list. As a result, since Tuesday, she's raised $6 million online after winning the Ohio primary and sort of winning the Texas primary.
Full disclosure, I work for a union that endorsed Hillary Clinton, so in a moment I'll address her. I've just been here for the last month, 40 minutes.
No fighting.
We're all friends. Sorry.
But that's and obviously after Super Tuesday, she was able to raise over $10 million in 3 days after she announced a loan to her campaign. Actually showed some vulnerability in the community. Community loosely defined as all these individuals who are on our email list, not really interacting with each other, but just receiving messages from the campaign, sprung into action. So I think they've definitely realized that this is, for the vast majority of people on the internet, it's clearly we've seen how she's winning older voters, she's winning women, she's winning people who, not traditionally considered your early adopter crowd, but are still active on the internet. They're active through email, and they're getting the messages and they're responding to them. Maybe not quite as much as Obama. Maybe I don't like her campaign quite as much as Obama, but it shows the viability of a top-down approach when you might not have a candidate. You're not going to have a candidate like Obama in every single race. I'm not saying I endorse that approach necessarily, but I think it's shown that if you can leverage your celebrity, if you can leverage your status, you can get a lot of support online, even if you don't, even if you don't Twitter, even if you don't do all the bells and whistles.
So 2 weeks ago at a new Democrat Network event, Joe Trippi, who rose to fame running the Howard Dean campaign and inspiring part of its web efforts, said the Clinton campaign would be the last campaign in Democratic history to run a top-down effort. Patrick, you seem to disagree with that a little bit. Sometimes it makes sense to be more top-down. When Trippi said this, of course, it was 2 weeks before Ohio and Texas occurred, and it truly did look like Clinton would eventually bow out.
I think we focus a lot on the presidential race, but we have to remember, there's 33, 34 Senate seats up this year, all 435 seats for the House, and in many of those cases, you're not necessarily going to have in every single race, candidates who inspire this huge groundswell of grassroots activism. And so, from the perspective of a political consultant, and I'm not necessarily, again, not necessarily endorsing it because I sometimes butt up against this kind of perspective. From that kind of perspective, they'll come back and say, well, we're not necessarily going to get a bunch of people excited and involved around this congressional candidate. So it does maybe make more sense to do a more top-down approach. So I think this idea of, I think there's certainly a potential. I think in every race there's a potential for somebody to come in to capitalize on that macaca moment that you have to be prepared for. That certainly could happen in every race. That's not saying it will happen in every race. And if you look at it from the perspective of somebody who runs campaigns, they're still looking at the top-down approach.
So